story I ever told. Back in 1989, I work in a library, and one of the Halloween witches got sick, and they said, you go in there, you know, we know you're a witch anyway, but you tell the story. You tell a story. And I said, what should I tell? And they gave me this story. I said, I am supposed to tell this to children? And they said, yes, they'll love it. So I'm going to tell it to you. And I don't have it on a paper anymore. It's been a long time. But you know the way stories lodge into people? This one won't let me go. Now, there was a young man in a small town in the South, and it was time for him to get married. You know, you come of age, you're supposed to get married. He knew all the girls in town, and they weren't interesting to him. He set his sight higher. And then when a stranger came to town, oh, she was the one. She had long golden hair. She had big blue eyes. She had apparently a very sweet disposition. And he courted her. And she said yes. And they got married. Now, when she arrived at his house, she had a small suitcase with her clothes in it and a spinning wheel. And he said, this is nice, good, she has a domestic arts. But did she want that spinning wheel in the parlor? No. She said, take it down to the basement. And he shrugged, and he took it down to the basement and put it in the corner. Now, everything was really sweet for quite a while. I mean, she was a good cook, she had a lovely disposition, but there was one problem. In the night, he was aware, he kind of broke around. Where was she? Why wasn't she in bed? She got in bed with him very sweetly, but then she wasn't there in the middle of the night. And he tried to, you know, you try to figure it out. Well, maybe she's hungry, maybe she got a snack, maybe she has insomnia, maybe she's reading in the park. No, I don't know where she, but he was afraid to ask her. And so this is what he cooked up. He kind of did a lot of napping during the day. And then in the relatively early evening, he said, oh, wife, I'm so tired. I'm going to go to bed early. And he crawled into bed, and he did a pretty good job of. So she did, you know what she does. She climbed into bed with him and just waited a little while, and then she slipped out of bed. And he slipped out of bed, giving her a little room to see where she would go. And no, she was not in the kitchen, and no, she was not in the parlor. She went down into the basement. She went over to that spinning wheel in the far corner, and she started pressing on that treadle. Where was the wall? No. She took her little finger and gave it a tug, and it seemed to kind of stretch. And then she wrapped that skin from her finger around the spindle. And as she did this, she started to sing, spin, spin, slip of skin, spin, spin, a slip of skin. And sure enough, the arm, the body, the whole skin slid off, leaving what was underneath, blood and bone and muscle and cartilage. It certainly was no girl anymore. It was some kind of creature. And then she went up the stairs. Now he, at this point, he was of course absolutely terrified, but he knew kind of what he had to do. He unwrapped that skin. It looked kind of like a pink wetsuit with long golden hair, and he hung it on a nail outside, because you know what she was a Boo Hag. She went up to the attic, she flung the window open, and she flew, she circled the town, and she screeched, and as she did, milk in bottles soured, and and cats yowled, and dogs howled, and babies cried, and then she flew off to meet her true mate, the Boo Daddy, out there. Now, what was he going to do? And then he remembered blue paint, because everyone in the South knows that creatures' paints can pass blue paint. And so he got out his paintbrush and he painted all around the windows, and he painted the door, and he shut that door, and he crouched inside, trembling, and he heard her coming. And when she saw that skin hanging outside and those blue barriers, what did she do? She exploded into 1,000 pieces of blood and bone and muscle, and she was gone. She hasn't come back to that town. But you know, wouldn't hurt to have a couple of cans of blue paint around just in